Welcome, Motenta people. Lucille Ball had a significant impact on the world of television sitcoms that nobody will ever be able to come close to. She was an actress and comedian who trailblazed her way through starring in her first sitcom, being visibly pregnant on TV, and even normalizing interracial marriage when such things were frowned upon. Lucille seemed fearless and created new concepts and ideas wherever she went. Lucille was a star, a businesswoman, and is one of Hollywood's most beloved stars of all time. Seriously, who doesn't love Lucy? Was Lucille Ball hunted as a Salem witch? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Motenta's channel. Lucille Desiree McGillicuddy was born on August 6, 1911, at 60 Stewart Avenue in Jamestown, a suburb of New York. She was the first child and only daughter of Henry Durrell Had Ball and Desiree Evelyn Ball, known to one and all as Dee Dee. Lucille's father was a linesman for the Bell Telephone Company, and the family were regular attendees of the local Baptist church. The family had many English heritage, but a few were Irish, Scottish, and English, and were amongst the early settlers in the 13 colonies. Due to her father's career, the family often moved while Lucille was young. The family had moved from Jamestown to Montana, New Jersey, and Michigan, all before Lucille turned 4. When Lucille was 3, her mother Dee Dee became pregnant with the family's second child, Fred. Her father contracted typhoid fever soon after her 4th birthday and died, leaving the small family with 2 young children and no father. With no income and 2 children under 5, Dee Dee was forced to return to her family in New York, where she returned to work, and her children were raised by her own parents. Lucille and her new brother Fred were brought up in the summer resort town of Celeron at a home on 59 West 8th Street. This house is now known as 59 Lucy Lane. 4 years after her husband's death, Dee Dee married Edward Peterson. They decided to look for work in another city and left the children with Edward's parents for many years. The step-grandparents were a puritanical Swedish couple who banned all mirrors in the house, except for a small one over the bathroom sink. After being caught admiring herself in the mirror as a child, Lucille was chastised for being vain. This affected her self-esteem for nearly a decade afterwards. Her first stint in the public eye came when she was just 12 years old. Her step-grandfather encouraged her to audition for his Shriners Fraternity's musical as a chorus girl. This was the first time Lucille had received praise, inspiring her to try out for more stage shows and musicals. While she was in high school, Lucille decided she wanted to be an actress. She loved being the center of attention after many years in an emotional wasteland. The school's principal saw her need and growing talent and ensured she was cast in school musicals and plays. Her step-grandparents were also very supportive of this goal. Maybe it was to do with the Shriners Fellowship and fun principles and long history of entertainment at their meetings that led to this surprising attitude, considering the strictly controlled family values. At the age of 14, Lucille fell in love with Johnny DeVita, a 21-year-old hoodlum. Lucille's mother thought this relationship would run its course. Still, after a year, she decided to exploit Lucille's love for the stage by offering her an enrollment in the John Murray Anderson School for the Dramatic Arts. This was a high spot for a short time in her teenage years. At age 16, a tragedy occurred in the family. Her brother Freddie had been gifted a gun for his birthday. The step-grandfather and Freddie were in the backyard with a neighbor's daughter learning to shoot the gun at a target. Another neighbor's child accidentally strayed into the firing line and was shot in the spine, making him a person with paraplegia. Warner Erickson's family filed a lawsuit to get compensation for their child's disability and care. The lawsuit forced the small family to sell everything they possessed, including the house and its contents. This event shattered the grandfather, and Lucille said he never worked again. The event was the catalyst for their move back to New York City. By the time Lucille was 18, she had found modeling suited her very well. She had a position at an in-house model in Hattie Carnegie and was ordered to dye her brown hair blonde. She learned to wear $1,000 dresses and $40,000 sable jackets as casually as cotton and rabbit in this time. As she started her stage career, Lucille contracted rheumatic fever and could not work for nearly 2 years. Once cured of her fever, Lucille returned to New York, and along with modeling, she started to perform on Broadway as a chorus girl, using the stage name Diane Belmont. Whilst vaudeville and chorus lines were what she knew, the prime time for this type of show had passed, and she needed to look at other avenues for work. The move to Los Angeles in the 1930s for 6 weeks was the turning point for her, and she finally got a job as a showgirl. It turns out that Hollywood was good for her. Her 6-week stay became forever, and she never really left. The showgirl job led to many minor roles in films, and as a contract player for RKO Radio Pictures, where she was also often cast as a chorus girl and the lead role in B-grade movies. Many budding actresses turned to radio work to supplement their income, and Lucille also found suit and gained a lot of exposure during her run on The Phil Baker Show from 1937 to 1938. After that show finished, Lucille joined the cast of The Wonder Show, starring Jack Haley. Although this radio show only lasted for 1 season, she met and maintained a professional relationship with Gail Gordon, the show's announcer, for another 50 years. By the 1940s, she started appearing in supporting roles in A-grade movies, but never broke into true stardom. She became known as the Queen of the Bees in Hollywood circles, taking the title from Fay Wray. For her role in Do Barry Was a Lady, Lucille was asked to dye her brown locks red, and she liked it so much she never went back. Her hairstylist, Irma Colsey, said that it wasn't easy to find the right shade of red for her, and when she met a wealthy sheik and he heard about her problems with red hair dye, he sent her a lifetime supply of henna. It was kept locked up and safe in Irma's garage for decades. When Lucille got the lead in the musical Too Many Girls, she played alongside Desi Arnaz, who played one of her 4 bodyguards in the movie. The first night they met on set, Desi asked her on a date. Desi was a Cuban-born musician and actor who turned out to be 6 years younger than Lucille, but they had clicked both on camera and off. After the movie finished filming, they eloped and got married. Lucille lied about her age, as it was socially unacceptable to marry a younger man at the time, so she put the birth date of 1914 on her marriage certificate to avoid controversy. CBS had created a movie called My Favorite Husband and asked Lucille to develop it for TV. She agreed to do it, but only if her real-life husband could star as her on-screen husband. At first, both the production company and Philip Morris, the cigarette company that sponsored the show, were against an interracial marriage between a red-headed American woman and a Cuban man appearing on TV. They were unsure about both his looks and his accent. They felt the American public wouldn't accept the couple and tried to stop the pair from appearing. Lucille is famed for telling them they would have to cast them both or have neither of them. They went about creating a pilot show, but CBS was unimpressed. So Lucille and Desi took I Love Lucy on with a touring vaudeville act, and it was so well received that CBS finally put it in their TV lineup. I Love Lucy was an instant and wide-ranging hit that is now part of the 1950s culture identity of North America. The show was remarkable on many levels. As we previously mentioned, it was the first interracial marriage to be shown on TV. The show broke many taboos, such as its star being over 40 years old and being pregnant while playing a pregnant woman on TV for the first time. Lucille and Desi's first child was born by a cesarean section, and it was time for the TV Lucy to give birth simultaneously. Around this time, Desi and Lucille set up a production company called Desi-Lu, a combination of their first names. Lucille was also now famous for being a female founder of a production company, not a common occurrence in the 1940s. I Love Lucy ran between 1951 and 1957, with 180 half-hour episodes, becoming the most-watched show in 4 of its 6 seasons. It was also the first show to call a halt when it was on the top of the Nielsen ratings. I Love Lucy has been translated into dozens of languages, and reruns are watched by approximately 40 million people every year. Around this time, the marriage between Lucy and Desi was unraveling. Desi's love for both the bottle and women he wasn't married to was too much for Lucille. The more successful their TV series became, the more unsuccessful they became personally. After the birth of the couple's second child, Desi Jr., on March 3, 1960, Lucille filed for divorce in the Santa Monica Superior Court, claiming life with Desi was a nightmare and nothing like the marriage they portrayed on TV. The divorce was finalized on May 4th, but they remained good friends until Desi died in 1986. After the divorce, Lucille bought out Desi's half of their production company for $2.5 million and became the first female CEO of a major production company, another big feather in her cap. Desilu was a significant production company of the time, and she later sold her shares to Paramount Studios for an astonishing $17 million in 1967. In 1968, she founded her own company called Lucille Ball Productions, which continued to produce shows and specials like Here's Lucy, based on the I Love Lucy franchise, as well as various other movies and comedic films she produced herself. In 1961, Lucille married stand-up comic Gary Morton. Their marriage lasted until his death from a brain aneurysm in 1989. Although this was a good and stable marriage, some still felt that Desi was still the love of her life. She continued running her production company, and when CBS and NBC both passed on a concept called Star Trek, she funded the pilot herself. The networks continued to reject it. Lucille believed in it so much that she overruled her board and ordered and funded a second pilot with William Shatner at the helm. This season made the 1966 fall lineup, and the rest, as they say, is history. While Lucille was a much-loved icon during the 50s and 60s, she wasn't without controversy. As a young woman, to please her socialist step-grandfather, she registered to vote with the Communist Party. For much of her life, she gave this little thought. But during the 1953 investigations by the House of Un-American Activities, she was hauled before Congress to explain herself. Probably due to her popularity and her lack of action past the registration phase, she appeased the committee, and they let her go. The investigation into private individuals, celebrities, and organizations suspected of having communist affiliations didn't go well for other stars like Charlie Chaplin and Orson Welles, who were forced underground or to work in other countries. Another connection that Lucille has to controversy is with the Salem witch trials. This is an alarming and hysterical point in American history, with up to 185 people, mostly women, aged between 5 and 85 years, being accused of witchcraft and 19 of them being put to death. Lucille is a direct descendant of Joseph Towne and Rachel Vinson. Whilst Joseph himself was not involved in the trials, 3 of his sisters were. One of them, a 71-year-old grandmother named Rebecca Towne Nurse, was accused and then at her trial found innocent. The community was shocked at the arrest, and she was known to be a pious woman who was well respected in the community. A comment Rebecca made during the trial about another accused woman, that she was one of us, later returned to haunt her. She was adamant that she meant the accused prisoners, not the witches with her reference. Still, public hysteria grew, and Rebecca was hanged along with 4 other women on Proctor's Ledge on July 19, 1692. This execution of a woman found innocent at her trial started to change the way people thought of the practices and what they were achieving. Finding and executing witches became questionable, and not long after, the Salem witch trials ended for good. Lucille is also the 8th great-niece of another alleged witch, Mary Perkins Bradbury, who was convicted and imprisoned but managed to escape. Other Hollywood celebrities that are descendants of the alleged Salem witches include Clara Barton, Vincent Price, and the 30th First Lady, Grace Coolidge. You might remember a reference to this part of Lucille's life in the episode Lucy and the Monsters, where Lucy has a nightmare about her car breaking down with her and Viv inside, right outside Dracula's castle. They go inside for help. When they come out, you guessed it, they had been transformed into witches. Lucille Ball had a career that spanned over 60 years. She starred in over 75 films, created many franchises, and worked for nearly every major Hollywood studio before passing away in 1989 from coronary issues. Lucille Ball was a truly funny woman who couldn't tell a joke and was a serious businesswoman off-screen. But seriously, who still doesn't love Lucy? If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. If we dig a little deeper, we can find interesting connections between Hollywood stars and the supernatural. Is Ginger Rogers' ghost still haunting? Let's find out from this video.